Tell me if this is you. You are working on a project. Your stakeholders have requested a lot of things from you and your team. You've accommodated everything, every change, and shortening timelines. But they are still choking whatever life remains in you and your team. They won't budge, they won't go easy on you, and they are still requesting more and more. There are many things that you can do to handle these situations, but one of the most underrated communication tools that you can use is phone calls. And before you close this video or scoff at this tip, just listen to these 3 reasons or 3 scenarios where phone calls can really make the difference. And if you still feel that way, please, I ask of you to tell me that it's a stupid idea in the comment section below. Reason or scenario number 1. You just can't seem to click with the decision maker from the other side or the main stakeholder. And it could be because of many reasons. During those meetings, when you have project updates or any meeting, there are many stakeholders, whether from your side or the other team's side. And you just can't seem to get the other person to listen to you or really understand where you're coming from and help you have a constructive discussion about the upcoming tasks or any changes in the plan. And as soon as you say something that it might be of inconvenience to them and you need to work it out with them, what you find is that they are arguing back, requesting for more things and denying you every single thing that could help you deliver this project. There are many stakeholders in the meeting, everyone is trying to explain their points, and it just doesn't seem like that person is listening to you. Rather, they seem to be distracted by the many information that is being shared in those meetings. Phone calls are amazing to overcome this challenge because it helps reduce all that noise, all that clutter of information. Having just 2 people talk rather than 10 people in a meeting just reduces the overthinking of what you need to say in front of all these people, how it will come across, who do you need to communicate to in a given moment, what will person X versus person Y think about what you're saying, regardless of who you're talking to or whether it's the other person or the other side. Reason or scenario number 2. You just did not win over that decision maker or that main stakeholder. Which is funny, right? You've accommodated everything that they have requested from you. Surely they must feel that you are on their side. But unfortunately, in a world where social relationships are very complex, sometimes that's just not the case. There's a story that is mentioned in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Talking to Strangers. In the book, he mentions about a case study or a research where patients sue their doctors. Such patients might see multiple doctors when they need their disease or illness get treated. When they see multiple doctors, the research has found that those patients are more often to sue the doctors that have done their jobs correctly, whether it's treating them correctly or diagnosing them with the right diagnosis. And instead, the doctors that mistreated them would not be sued. And the reason being was the doctors who did their job correctly just did not spend enough time connecting with their patients on an emotional level. Instead, they would treat the patients, hey, what's your problem? This is the problem. This is what you need to do. On to the next patient. Whereas those doctors who did their job incorrectly actually spent the time listening to the patient, listening to them rambling on about, even if it's unrelated information that the doctor would later use for their diagnosis. But it's just that emotional connectedness saved them from getting sued. Using that same analogy, winning over people sometimes is the main thing that you need to do to overcome such difficult situations. Phone calls are amazing communication tools to do that. Why? Because it's not in a meeting in front of many people or a cold email that just does not hold a personal touch enough to win over people, or a message in Slack, which is way worse. Phone calls is dedicating some of your time to a very personal way to get to talk to the other person and just hearing from them. And reason or scenario number 3, you still did not align with your stakeholder. Again, going back to the point where you've accommodated everything that they have requested of you, how can you still not come across as being aligned with them? And one way to know whether you have aligned with them or not, ask yourself, why are they being difficult? Are they aiming for a promotion that they have been fighting for a very long time? Or instead, do they have a boss that is sitting on top of them, threatening to fire them if this project does not go well? Or are they just going through a very difficult time in their personal life? Now, you don't need to align with them on that deep level, but at least if you have a sense of why are they doing what they're doing, how would they want this project to be to run smoothly from their point of view, and where are these changes coming from? Do they have a goal that they're trying to achieve? Hence, they want all these changes to achieve that goal. And if you don't know, then phone calls will help you to get to know the person better, to understand where they're coming from. But keep in mind, to get that information, you definitely need to ask why. They might not indulge in such information from the first moment, but the more you get to know them, the more you connect with them through phone calls, the more they might be willing to share that information with you. Sometimes you need to share something that is vulnerable for you in order for them to open up to you during phone calls. Now, with that being said, there are many tips to having effective phone calls. I have 3. Tip number 1, depending on the person that you're about to call, some of them would like or prefer a heads up. You could tell them or drop them a message, hey, I just want to run something quickly by you. Can I call you for 5 minutes, in 30 minutes, in an hour, or whenever it's suitable for you? But some of them, it's more effective if you don't give them that heads up. You need to understand the person that you are dealing with so that you know, can you call them randomly, or should you schedule it, or just give them a heads up before you call them? Tip number 2, some people hate that you are taking more of their time. In their mind, you already have an hour meeting long that is scheduled in a few days. Why are you calling them? So make sure that your phone calls are sweet and short. Try to be very brief. And depending on the kind of conversation that you're having, they might be willing to give you more time if you show them value in those phone calls. So try to assess the person you're dealing with, the information that you're going to give them, and whether they find it to be valuable. Hence, they're going to give you more of their time or not. Sometimes some of them just want it to be very brief. Hey, what's your challenge? Let me know. How can I help you? It could be just a couple of minutes as well, just like that. And the final tip is, and this is very important, if it's paying off, do it repetitively. Depending on the duration of the project. If it's 6 months, 1 year long project, you need to maintain that bond if you establish it through phone calls. But there are a few disclaimers and warnings to having effective phone calls. The first warning, is the person you're going to call a phone call kind of person? Some of them are not, and you need to have different ways to communicate with them aside from calling them. And tip number 2, calling people or conversing over a phone call is a skill. If you're not used to that, it's going to come across as very difficult in the beginning. You have to practice it. You have to understand how to read people through phone calls and what to say in a given moment. I've done it for many years, so it's kind of comfortable for me now. I still don't think I've mastered it, and there's a lot more for me to learn, but you have to look at it as a skill that you need to practice for you to become very effective when communicating with people over phone calls. If you've made it this far, I'm assuming you don't think that it's a stupid suggestion or a stupid communication tool. If so, let me know if you agree and how are you planning on using it. But if you still think it's stupid, I would love to know why. For me, I love to know the things people disagree with me on rather than those who agree with me. With that being said, have a wonderful day.